Welcome to the Breakthrough Moments podcast, a podcast where challenges meet opportunities. I'm Harold, and together with my co-host Lasse, we explore stories of innovators, leaders, professionals, and entrepreneurs and how they turn obstacles into game-changing breakthroughs. Get ready for insights that inspire and lessons that last. Subscribe now and let's dive into the moments that define success. Today on the Breakthrough Moments podcast, we have the pleasure of welcoming Maja Meissner, a seasoned executive with over 14 years of experience in executive search, coaching, and development. Maja is the founder of M&P, a boutique executive search firm with offices in both US and Poland, known for its deep understanding of the challenges faced by today's leaders. With a focus on bridging the gap between generations in the workforce and navigating the complexities of a global market, Maja's insights are invaluable for both seasoned executives and emerging entrepreneurs. She's here to share her journey, the obstacles she's overcome, and her vision for the future of leadership in an ever-evolving world. Welcome to the podcast, Maja.
Thank you for having me. Very happy to be here.
We've had a conversation previous to, or before this, where we got to know each other a bit better, and I learned about M&P, the origin story, and the things that you've been doing for the past 14 years in your executive search career. But for those that don't know you, don't know M&P, could you give a short description and background?
Sure, I can. Before I formed my own company under my name, which, as you just mentioned, was 14 years ago, I actually joined my partner. So for 3 years, I was sort of learning this headhunting craft. And before that, I used to be a manager on a high positions in a very different organizations in operating and in Poland or CE. And I worked with different industries like pharmaceutical, publishing. I worked for different cultures. I worked for companies originally from the US or Scandinavia or a Polish government owned or French and German. So I got sort of well understanding what's on the other side before I became a consultant and an executive coach and a leadership consultant. So that's how all started. That I was on the other side, understanding sort of formed cultures, because as you know, in Poland we were like learning stuff after 1990s.
Yeah. I think that's a nice one. And one of the things that we discussed last time was the origin, kind of like how M&P came to be, because it's been 14 years and you started in Europe, you've been expanding to the US. We talked a bit about the background and reasons for that.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of things that has happened for the past 14 years.
Yes.
Could you kind of like take us back to the beginning? What inspired you to take the leap? Okay, now I want to start M&P, doing it, and what initial challenges you faced when doing so?
Yeah. Right. Well, that was a question of having an influence and being really on top of things and making it in a way I wanted. And what was always and has been till today is the put the customer at the center of everything. And I could just feel that I can do it when I have my own company, which is run by me. And we wanted to make this executive search more about real fit and culture alignment than what we experience being on the other side. So we thought that having that experience, like 15 years being in different corporations and then knowing many people, how great it would be to match the organizations we like with the candidates we value. So we aim to shift the focus from just filling positions to truly understand and match organizational culture. And we had plenty of challenges along the way, and those in task and trying to master it, and from building credibility, which was it's always the most important thing, because we were competing with the big top 5 most important headhunters in our region, and navigate diverse cultural landscape. and it was very dynamic time, and it is still, as you know, because it changes even faster now than it was when I have started. And being on the other side, as I mentioned already, for so many years has been incredibly enlightening. It taught us the importance of, again, aligning the organizations, knowing their needs, understanding that those people in the business positions, they want to fill the position quickly
Mm-hmm.
but with a really right candidate. And as I said already, the best part till today is that we can choose the clients and we can choose the candidates we respect
Mm-hmm.
and value. So people who we truly great, so to speak, we think they are great. So this is when you really feel you have this important role of matching good companies with good candidates. Of course, in my through my own eyes and my coworkers and partners. But that's what's really is the most important thing for us at Meissner and
Yeah.
Partners.
Yeah. You mentioned that as you've now been on both sides of the table, kind of, you could say. How because you mentioned that the origin of MMP was we wanted to do it a bit differently.
Right.
How was it being done previously? Was it just kind of like the volume? Okay, let's find a candidate and deliver that candidate, and that's it, and not so
Yeah.
much kind of like
Well,
in-depth matching.
it's actually for all those years the industry doesn't change much. It's being organized like you have a research department, and then you have the consultant, and then you have a senior
Mm-hmm.
consultant and a partner, and then the client comes. Most of them are being the international big clients using the network, and then you are just producing the candidate, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
because then it's the research is being briefed. It gives you the candidates, calls them up, asks them if they would be interested or not. Then consultant is having a meeting being set, and then you are just having a sort of a list, short, long list, depending on an agreement, show to the client. We sort of being a small boutique company, we are actually doing everything by ourselves. Of course, we have our
Mm-hmm.
research, but we just want our research to prepare the list, and we have a big impact on who is actually from the beginning on that list, and we contact those guys directly and we speak to them, because for today times, the way you approach the candidate and the way he speaks to you, it already gives you a big picture of how that person operates. So
Yeah.
we eliminate the like two layers on in between me and the client, and I
Yeah.
always ask the client to put me in line with the business owner, not with the HR department, which is sometimes the HR department is very happy for it because we are taking their job and we're just conducting the search directly with the business owner, and then
Mm-hmm.
we are learning how that person is operating, what's the pace of that person, and we can adjust it very fast. So we are much faster, and we are very much into doing it by our hands. So it's
Yeah.
very boutique. It's actually like you go and buy tailor-made clothing that you
Yeah.
really want to see it from the very beginning, because it's nothing to overestimate. Few first minutes of contact with the candidate
Mm-hmm.
you don't know gives you already the flavor. Would it
Yeah.
work or not? I know it sounds crazy, but
No, it doesn't.
live it that way.
I think it makes sense because I'm actually in dialogue with a someone I did studies with, but they dropped out because they built a company, and now we're in discussions in terms of doing a recruitment company. With and he informed me about it, kind of like how was the industry standard, and it's very like volume, just churning out candidates, not necessarily
Yeah,
sitting down with the client, the company that is looking to
right.
hire, learning about their values, learning about the mission, the
Yeah,
values, and
and
how to integrate the candidate, which is a right fit. So
right.
I
And
think
that's what
you're moving in that right direction.
and that's what we really do from the very very beginning, that we
Mm,
always insist to see the person who will be finally, before even starting the long list, who will be really the boss of that person.
mm-hmm,
So yeah, so and it needs trust from both sides, And that's why when we have a clients, most of the times we stay them for a long time, because they
Yeah.
know that if they call us, they don't even have to be in between. They know that they just put us with the manager and then with a member of the board, and it will be done in a way that the member of the board will come back to the HR and say, well,
Hmm.
they are good, it's fine. They just understand me in a moment, and the candidate they are sending, they're really very good. What
Yeah.
it opens a discussion with the manager. We always calibrate the position on a candidate already. We say, well,
Yeah.
look, we show you 2 or 3 candidates. They are not like perfect fit, but we think that you should maybe wider your the primer idea who to hire, because I
Hmm.
think that would be a great match. And that's when we found the very fulfilling the job we're doing, that we sometimes are offering the candidate which is absolutely the first choice candidate, but after we really talk the client to meet with the person, he says, well, you are right. That's a
Yeah.
new perspective. That's something I really need, especially when you
Hmm.
know the company, because you worked for the company 9 or 5 years, and you are actually following all the changes and the culture and everything. You know the strategy. You must be very much into the goals, just to be able to fulfill those goals with the candidate who we are bringing in.
Yeah.
And this hasn't
I,
changed.
yeah. I like that because like I've also hired a bunch of people and I've had other people hire people for and find people for me as well. And if it's not the right fit, it's not the right fit. And the drawback of a wrong hire is often costly. But it brings me kind of to the next question as well, because one of the things that we discussed is because this is kind of like how do you account for culture and these things into finding a candidate and matching them with the company. But also, you've been expanding in MMP.
Right.
Like you started in Poland, going to the US to tap into a market that you found to be more, let's say, dynamic and flexible than Europe and especially Eastern Europe, like we discussed last time. Like, what differences have you seen in the, let's say, the European market and the American market in terms of
Yeah.
uh, how this process works?
All right, I tell you, because this is firstly, the European market, as you know, tends to emphasize on more holistic and long-term approach to leadership development. European companies often focus on developing internal talent through structured program that includes cross-functional experiences, international assignments, continuous education. This is the part driven by the cultural diversity within Europe, which requires leaders to be adaptable to a sensitive different business environments and culture nuances. In contrast, the American market often values a more result driven
Mm,
approach, with a stronger focus on external recruitment to quickly fill leadership role with a candidate who have a proven track record of delivering measurable outcomes. So the
mm,
process is very much like us. I mean, this American way of like, bring me a person who will do the job. And I don't care really if he was a, so to speak, L'Oreal baby who we with L'Oreal took from the high school. And now that person is 40 years old and has been assigned a different regional positions within Europe. And maybe finally it's ready to take a next step. I'm not
mm,
like criticizing that model. I'm just showing the difference within the model. And secondly, I've noticed that European companies typically prioritize stability and sustainability in leadership. There is a greater emphasis on aligning candidates with the company long-term vision and values, which means that cultural fit and alignment with the company's strategic direction is a critical factor. But
yeah.
in the US, there is often a greater willingness to bring a disruptive leader who, with outside the organization, will bring change or innovation, even if they came from a different industries and backgrounds, and they are
Mm,
much more open to it than we in Europe, which actually is our sort of dynamic and energy.
yeah.
And the difference have shaped our strategies in several ways. That in Europe we place a strong emphasis on understanding the cultural context and of each market and tailoring our search process to find leaders who can navigate complex multicultural environments. We also focus more on leadership development and succession planning, helping companies identify and groom internal talent for this future leadership role. Because, as you know, we are not only headhunters, but we are executive coaches and
Yeah.
leaders, mentors.
Development, yeah. Yeah.
And in the US, in our strategies more focus on quickly identifying high impact leaders who can drive immediate results, often
Yeah.
leveraging a broader network to find candidates with specific proven capabilities. So understanding these market nuances help us provide tailored solution, which are with the unique needs of our clients in both on both
Mm.
continents. And for those dynamic, rapid market we observe, US market and the way we operate looks like more for us, so to
Yeah.
speak. And I tell
What
you
do you,
that we used to call Europe an old continent. It's from the
mm,
history books. And for me, at the moment, it became an old continent
yeah.
more than ever before.
Yeah.
So that's why this is we had this appetite, this hunger to do it in a different way on a different markets. Plus, of course, it's always finding the right partner. And I just found the right partner
Mm.
in Washington, and we just decided to do it together and co-join our experience more into fields which are not that developed in Europe, like cybersecurity, like digital
Yeah.
money, like fintechs, like all those startups which are actually needing those very dynamic leaders.
Yeah. Why do you think it's such a difference where the focus in the States is like result driven, it doesn't matter if it's a disruptive leader, while in Europe we kind of like, okay, let's sit steady in the boat, let's account for everyone and look more at the sustainable side of things. So why do you think it is such a difference?
Well, I think it's a very it's based on our history at both continents. Like I'm quoting now the book of Culture Map, and it has been discovered and researched. For American people, time is a sort of an enemy. I mean,
Mm.
you have that time and you have to fulfill it with projects, and you will not have that day anymore. So you really have to speed up. And in old continent, in Europe, time is a friend. You have
Mm.
your time to sort of deconstruct stuff, think about it again, talk about it, strategize. See, time is passing, but then you think this time is actually helping me to make my judgments and decisions right. And then we start to progress. So I think the most important difference is on how we perceive time.
Yeah.
Time in the
That's
States, it's
interesting.
like we have no time. We had to build that country from scratch. We had
Yeah.
no time to really deliberate. We had to have
Hmm.
places to live and play and work and feed our families. So let's just progress with things. In Europe was different, and I think that's the biggest difference, and that's what lies as a most important base for
Yeah.
the style of leaderships.
Yeah, the difference. Yeah, I think that's a nice bridge because that's the cultural difference of the continents.
Right.
But there's not the just the cultural difference of the continents that are changing the markets now. It's also the generational culture and the difference in terms of how the generations work.
Absolutely.
You've highlighted a bit of the differences and the challenges of bridging that gap between the older, the more senior, let's say, executives and leadership, and the new generation that is about to enter the workforce. We talked a lot about this last time, and I found it to be very interesting in terms of we went completely different from what I expected, and we talked a lot about the how is the difference because there is this huge difference between those who are early 20s now that are entering the workforce and those who have been leading companies for 2.5, 3 decades.
Right.
Like, how do you approach and how do you see this generational gap? Is it similar in Europe as in the States? Is it different? And what can we do to aid leaders account and integrate
Yeah.
this new workforce?
Yes, it is a difference. The difference is it's very much related to this entrepreneurial spirit, which is very American spirit, and this entrepreneurial spirit today is very much tied to technology, and
Mm-hmm.
as always has been, but now it's much faster than it used to be. So, and this young generation is bringing actually this knowledge, which is crucial to be
Mm-hmm.
real great effective entrepreneur. So I've noticed that the young generation of leaders, or like even the regular employees, are being much more respected there than they are
Mm.
respected here, because we have again this hierarchy, and then we are very much into this mode that this is a pupil, he has to come and learn, and then it needs time, and he has to really adjust, and he has to have all those obstacles I experienced when I was entering the
Mm.
market, so, and then you are just not taking from those young generation what they are bringing and embracing it, like, well, that's great, let's just include you and just plug you in to different teams of people who are taking the decisions and making strategies. No, you rather sit somewhere there until you will sort of deserve. And I'm just
Yeah.
exaggerating, because of course all the
Mm.
companies I work with would tell, no, no, we are having a different approach, we are understanding that need. But what they do is one thing, what they say is another thing. So they are
Yeah.
not doing it. In the States, you actually have no choice. You have to include those guys because they are
Yeah.
just telling you where to go.
Yeah.
And as we discussed being before, that as soon as the companies will understand that actually it's a gold to have those young people who want to share with you the perspective, the knowledge of technology, which they have actually by heart and they by blood. Sometimes it's not something which they've been educated, because it's already gone and outdated
Mm-hmm.
education. So as soon as you embrace and see, it doesn't has to be like on a Maslow pyramid, that first a shelter, and then the sort of a being safe, and then working your career up. It's rather that they want to be on top. I mean, the young generation all over the places, and they want to say, we feel you, our influence, you respect us, and you just tell us what's the sense of my work. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes on those continents, I'm making, of course, I'm generalizing it for that conversation we have. But
Yeah.
here it's rather wait until it's time, until
Mm.
we decide it's time for you. And in here, it's rather show us. And then
Yeah.
if you show it, then you're just in.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
that's that's
That's
that's
interesting.
that's a guy. This is another reason which brought us to the US. Like, we want to treat young people that way, and
Mm.
we lecture whatever and wherever we are. Like, if you will actually stop and drop this old thinking, that's what will bring you further. And I even
Yeah.
told you that from my perspective, I think that the companies, those huge international companies, they are so unprepared to make a space for that young generation due to basic stuff like money, positions,
Mm-hmm.
influences, that it might be even impossible to change the culture. And I think they should actually build a new companies, just next new generation companies, and then at some point put them together and then ask
Yeah.
those old guys, now we're actually working in a new pace, do you join us? Because that would be our culture, our new organizational culture. And by the way, the guys who will be managing you are being 32 or maybe even 28, and that's fine. And that's the way
Yeah.
we want to progress. And for me, because I'm always has been very close to those young generation just by heart. I think they are great. I like them a lot, and I think they have much worse time for themselves to grow up than when we have, because in so uncertain times, from a climate, geopolitical reasons, they all the time hear that something will happen and then maybe this whole world will collapse. That this is that's why they behave that way. Like, we have no time to lose, we want to live our life and we want to use our talents. And then if we are just spending our time somewhere, we want that time to be respected. And then we want to know what's the sense of what we are doing every day at our desks. And I think it's much, and I would like to be really aligned with this kind of a way of thinking than this, which I'm sometimes observing within my clients, who I like, and I always lecture the same as now, being very unpopular since time to time, but I don't really care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's interesting
lately
how.
I tell you a case from 2 days ago. I
Okay.
have this great international Polish company which is actually entering global market in a very modern pharmaceutical field, and they want to hire a person who will be reporting to a CEO, a global international guy. And then they called me up yesterday and they said, you know what, she's great and we love her, but she just doesn't look that senior. And I said, "Oh, really? Yeah, yeah, that's right. She doesn't look senior. She looks even younger than she is, just by her nature." So I just called her up and I said, "Look, you have this important meeting tomorrow. Please make yourself look older. Just take a glasses and just dress yourself in an old style. We just need that for you to enter that job. And this is, I know it's a sort of a manipulation, but that's what we need." And then she says, "Well, I understand your point, of course." And she made her like 10 years older just to have a better receiving. You know what I mean? Isn't that sort of
Yeah.
crazy? But that happens every day.
Yeah.
Because
It's
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 not
interesting
what she's
because
done. It doesn't matter
yeah.
she has a great track record. Doesn't matter she has a great education. It's a matter of she wasn't enough years on the field, you
Yeah.
know, which is
Yeah.
which is actually a plus.
It's interesting how, because we have a concept. I'm not sure if it's just like it here in Norway, but reverse mentoring, and it's
Yeah,
basically
right. Do that.
appreciating the
Yeah,
appreciating the new perspectives that the younger generation has,
right. Absolutely.
and helping the more senior and the top
Absolutely.
leadership.
Yeah, that's what
And
we
I think
do. We
that's important.
actually cooperate with the foundation in Poland, which is doing it. It's called Off School. So those guys who are just graduating from the very, very, very great, actually very dynamic foundation, they are giving, and that's how they are earning the money for the foundation. They are giving the lectures and workshops for big companies how to talk to us. We will just
Yeah.
teach you guys in different manners how to design jobs for us. And they are being like 23, let's say, or 25 or 21. And I had an HR director going, "Well, really, she's coming to run this workshop for us? She's 23." And I said, "Well, that's the whole point of it. That's
Yeah.
it. And she will
Yeah.
just handle it." "No, but maybe it would be good if you will be with her." And I'm like, "No, because that's exactly what's spoiling the idea of having her in front of you. And
Yeah.
so what? You don't respect her, but she's just telling you about what she knows best, and you have no clue what the generation needs." And yeah, absolutely. And it's a crowd. It's all over the place, and I know it's being very popular lately.
Yeah. Because one of the things as well is kind of like the younger generation has a completely different take on technology, as you mentioned. Like most, let's say, sub 28 is digital natives. Like they've grown up with a cell phone by their side since they can remember. And how do you see kind of like technology having an effect, and especially AI and generative AI, which has been all the hype the past couple of years? How that's gonna affect not just the dynamic between the younger and the older generation, but also leadership and executive search. Like, do you
Yeah,
see any
right.
potential opportunities and pitfalls?
Yeah,
It's the game is changing.
right, absolutely. But again, it's something we have to embrace and like and adjust and learn as much as as soon as quick as we can. And the opportunities are very clear that it enhances talent identification and matching, and it improves the efficiency, effectiveness. And with this AI-driven algorithm, we can analyze amounts of data, uncover patterns, right? And which cannot be invisible to human recruiters. It includes evaluating candidate skills, experience, cultural fit, and it's really something which can speed hiring decisions and be much more precise. And it was very important from my perspective, and it's very, very up to date. It's reducing bias in recruitment,
Yeah.
right? Because it really mitigate all unconscious bias we can have during the hiring process. And we just focus solely on what the data and attributes of the candidates are being revealed to us by those tools, which is great. And if it's well designed, if it's well designed and properly done, then it's really something a great plus. And
Mm-hmm.
all these predictive analytics for leadership development, so we can really predict the future leadership potential particular candidates by analyzing patterns in performance data, behavior, career progression. It enables organizations to proactively identify, develop future leaders, tailoring development programs to individual needs. And it is great, and that's what we need. And it's streamlining the hiring process. And what's important, all this neurodiversity generation, because this new generation is very much neurodiverse, and it will be with many spectrums, and this AI can really help to understand that, because it's easier for a machine to understand those biases, identify, and actually show the protocols how to work with that particular individual. So it's very
Mm-hmm.
helpful for managers to manage diverse teams.
Yeah.
And of course there are some bad points about that. We cannot over reliance on data. We cannot really over trust the data, and we have to be very critical about that too, and we have to be wise. Of course, there is a bias in AI algorithm, because we know how it's designed, you know everything about it, so I will
Mm-hmm.
not be boring you with it. Of course, this privacy and ethical concerns, this is something which is very regulated in the European market, and it's much more open in the States. Another reason to be in the States, but then of course it can be very harsh sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course the resistance to change, that the companies, they don't want to change, they don't want to include that tools, and then that's something which one companies will progress and the other will not. So what I see, the executive search and leadership development, the implementation of AI must be with caution and wiseness. And organizations should leverage AI to complement human decision making, but not replacing the human decision
Mm-hmm.
making process. Ensuring that technology serves the enhance rather than replace the critical human elements of judgment, intuition, empathy, and all that what we can deliver. But I just love it. I love all those tools, and I'm very much into them.
Yeah. You mentioned a bit earlier about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how it's changed in terms of how the younger generation wants, what they are looking for in terms of things. And I remember I mentioned when we spoke last that one survey done in Norway has been that there are three new questions that have been added to, okay, what the younger generation wants or asks of a future employer or a current employer. and one of them has been kind of like, okay, how are you gonna ensure and take care of my mental well-being?
Okay.
It's how can you ensure that I have impact, and how can you ensure that I have flexible work hours and schedule in terms of like working from home, having the hybrid, and all these things. Like, how have you seen businesses approach these changes in terms of the different demands or the different desires from the younger generation in terms of
Mhm.
mental health, flexible work environments, when businesses typically have been very traditional? Like, you have to come to the
Right.
office, it's you have to come here, you have to sit here and wait until you kind of like gotten the seniority to be given trust. Like, what have you seen regarding that?
Mhm.
Because could
Yeah.
you go more into
I
that?
well, I might tell you what I see, and at the same time what I advise, because
Yeah.
that's already the advice. So I always tell them that they have to address these evolving expectations, and
Mm-hmm.
because there is no other way, they will not change it. They have to just embrace flexibility, foster a culture of continuous learning, and rethink traditional workplace structure to create really more adaptive, inclusive, and dynamic organizations, because there is no other way. And this embracing flexibility and hybrid models is it's a most significant shift in expectations in demand. This flexibility is really important, and I encourage executives to implement these hybrid work models that blend remote and in-office work, giving employees to the autonomy, which is very important. The actually employees they should decide about the autonomy to choose arrangements that best suit their needs while
Mm-hmm.
maintaining productivity and collaboration. And it's very different, because some of the people they just want to go to the office and sit in the office, the other want to
Yeah.
have blended, the other want just to stay out. And this is something we have to really design this work for a place in a different world. It involves rethinking office space to be more collaborative and less centered around fixed desks, and
Mm-hmm.
investing in digital tools and facilitate remote communication and teamwork. But at the same time, we need people who they want corner office.
Yeah.
They just need that because of whatever need comes from their childhood or ambitious or whoever ego. And if they want corner office and they want great view and they will be in that office reusing that space, why not? It's great and it's fine and it doesn't matter. But the other person on the same level wants to sit at home or on the beach, or maybe partly come and socialize. It all depends on goals they have, teams they manage,
Mm-hmm.
strategy the company is applying, and then this promoting a culture of continuous learning. It's not like
Yeah.
everybody wants to develop themselves.
No,
It's just
that is it's actually quite rare.
it is, but it's well, because you actually developing yourself in some areas which are not being visible to your company, because you want to spend your time on developing the skills which are not being relevant to your work, but in the end they all relevant to your work, because all
Yeah.
of them are teaching you something like creativity, or even it doesn't matter if you're a horse rider, a yoga teacher, or if you just having some you're producing some little stuff you sell over internet, and it's a craft, something which is being very very fashionable now. You just need to let the people develop in the way they think they feel developed, not the way you think they are being developed. And this continuous learning is great. So of course, to meet the rapid pace of technological and market changes, I advise executives to prioritize a culture of continuous learning and development. That's what I just said. And we have to be very adaptable to what our managers feel like a development. You just need to
Mm-hmm.
ask them and just have that conversation. You can feel so many about the people, and that what's another thing. You have to be curious about
Yeah.
people you manage and you work with, right? Because this is what we need, and that's what gives us this psychological safety. Somebody cares
Mm-hmm.
about me, not only the
Mm-hmm.
job I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's just something I need. And
Yeah.
of course, this building inclusive and purpose-driven culture, the most important. Employees today increasingly seek workplaces that align with their values, promote the diversity and inclusion, and offer a sense of purpose, what I'm repeating all the time, and I'm so sure it's boring already. But I advise executives to be proactive in building this inclusive culture, but ensuring diverse representation at all levels of organizations, right? Because this is, we have to remember, it goes down top and top down. This is actually, all those layers of the organization should talk, they should talk to themselves constantly. We're
Mm-hmm.
talking about the new generation and those, as we just mentioned, that there is a young generation telling the old generation how to work with us, but we sometimes have layers within the companies, different fields,
Mm-hmm.
and we never talk to them within the same company, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So uh,
It's a
and
lot of
this
things to think about.
and
It
that's and
is.
this is and that's what makes people really being seen, being important, being respected, and that's what builds the culture.
Yeah. There is one thing that, at least how I see it, based on the previous conversation we had, is completely different now. It's a completely different geopolitical scene. It's a macroeconomic scene. Everything is different now compared to, let's say, 20 years ago. Like
Right.
you've had the pandemic, you've had the war in Ukraine, the war now in Gaza and Palestine and Israel. There's a lot of uncertainty. In addition to that, we have record high inflation that at least the younger generation never have experienced. Um, how do you think leaders should approach this? Because it completely changed the desires often by the young generation because everything is uncertain. Like, how do you see that leaders should approach this and go through these uncertain times?
All right. Okay, so I prepared several points, so I'll be very brief, and you can we can maybe focus on some of them. But first of all, it's foster an agile the mindset. So we
Mm,
have to understand that's the way it will be, and we have to really foster it, agile it, and embrace it, and understand that. Then the other thing is a strengthened communication and transparency. We have to really be very, very careful about how we communicate and how transparent we are as an organization, because that's what brings people stability in this uncertain world.
yeah.
Then we have to focus on employee well-being and engagement, as we said, very individually planned. And this well-being of what I have actually influence on is my team and my team members, and I just have to pay attention to their needs. Then it's of course important that we see that our company and our managers are being good at scenario planning and risk management. They are just good guys, they stable, they
Mm,
understand it, and they have scenario for every uncertain things which can come, because prepare the scenario for we don't know what happened but we know how we will behave. That's what really brings you resilience, and
yeah.
this is very important thing, and it comes very much from a battlefield and from military, and this is why some of the leaders are being hired from military experience, because they are being taught about those things from the beginning, and they know how to implement. So unfortunately, but then fortunately, we have to take this military experience and apply to the corporations, organizations we manage, to be sure that we have a scenario if there is a risk, whatever
Mm-hmm.
risk it can come. Then of course, again, cultivating the culture of continuous learning. We have to learn every day. So you have to just adjust, learn, read, see. It's all evolving and it's a part of the
Mm-hmm.
culture. The stability is gone. Resilience is built on you understand the way how it is, and you're just trying to respond to it, because old model of behaving and style is not going to work. And then of course this maintaining on one hand, long-term vision, but on the other hand, a short-term flexibility.
Hmm.
So, and then you have to understand that long-term vision, which was bringing, as I said and described Europe before, and it was very much into how we lead people and develop people. It's a great thing to have, but it's a luxury. For now,
Mm.
having a long-term vision is a luxury. So it's great if your vision can stay the same, but most of the times it will not. And this is okay. So we have to have this short-term flexibility. And that's why sometimes on top positions today, the people from the much lower hierarchy of the company are much better suitable for those higher positions, because they have to react to a client and all sort of situation on a daily basis, and they know the
Mm.
speed, and they should be actually promoted, especially if they know the business and they are good as a managers. Doesn't matter from which field they are coming from, because this is not important. It's important the personality and the way you operate, despite your in-depth experience in a particular field. And this is the most important for what you just asked, the how to react to this global uncertainty. And of course, if you feel that you are in a company which you share values with and you are really being engaged just by heart, by emotions, and if you can create that kind of a workplace, this is the beauty. I mean, that's the most needed thing you can create.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. So far we've talked about like the cultural differences between the continents, the cultural and mindset differences of the generations, and how existing companies that are quote unquote more traditional can how they should approach the younger generation and what we need in certain times. But one thing I also want to touch upon, as kind of like before we move towards the end of this podcast, is what advice do you have to the younger generation, those that want to get into leadership roles, get into managing roles, navigating this complexity, the global business landscape, and uh, how
Right.
should they get in handling these? Let's say the older generation that is a bit like stay in your place until you deserve it.
Right. Yes, that's actually the most interesting part of my work, to work with this new generation leaders. So I would tell them, of course, that be comfortable with being uncomfortable,
Mm.
because that's what will not change. And the days of linear career paths and predictable markets are long gone. And I have some tips for them, like embrace your inner chameleon. So I'm not suggesting you change colors based on your surrounding, but being adaptable is a key. So just develop that, the ability to pivot, whatever it's your strategy, your perspective, or even your skill set, is what will set you apart as a leader. Just be very adaptable in everything you do. In a world where changes is the only constant, be prepared to reinvent yourself regularly. And remember, flexibility is not about doing yoga, it's about being open to new ideas, opportunities, and challenges, right? So be and do that. Then, very important, stay curious. Like, really curious. Think of yourself as a detective of never ending case. Ask questions, dig deeper, never stop learning. The most successful leaders of today are these who maintain and begin have maintain a beginner's minds, regardless of their experience level. And this is very important. Regardless of
Mm.
the experience level, curiosity keeps you fresh, fuels innovation, and helps your connect the dots in a new way, which is very needed today. Plus, is a lot more fun just nodding along in meetings, right? And then three, build your own tribe and be nice to
Mm.
them. Networking is not just about collecting business cards or LinkedIn contacts and connections. It's about building real relationships. Surround yourself with people who challenge you, inspire you, and occasionally make you laugh when things get tough. Your network is your corners of the world. So be generous with your time and support, and don't be afraid to reach out. A little kindness goes a long way. So be like, really have your heart be visible. Something which was not fashionable before. Like you rather not
Yeah.
show your emotions and attachments. No, just quite opposite now. And now learn to dance with this ambiguity. Uncertainty is the new normal. Of course, we know that. And enjoy that because it's a lot of fun. Don't wait for all the answers before you make a decision. Sometimes you just have to make the best choice with the information you have and keep moving forward. And remember, leaders are judged not by their ability to predict the future, but by how they respond to it. So sometimes go with your intuition, because intuition is a summary of the experience. And this is actually what comes first to your mind, not without a reason. It comes for the reason. Plus, now, if we know there is so much about epigenetic, it's actually the intuition is based on your genetic uh, experience of the previous generations you are coming from, and just use that, because this is what is being to make a big difference. And then develop an thick skin, but keep your heart soft. As I just said, the business world can be tough and not everyone will agree with your ideas. Learn to take criticism without letting it define you, but stay empathetic and compassionate. Leadership is not about being just loudest in the room, it's about being the one other trust to listen. Just build this real trust, and this trust is built on authenticity, and
Yeah.
just be authentic, be yourself, and then have a sense of humor. It's
That's
a
important.
leadership superpower. I mean,
Yeah.
we didn't have the humor during our podcast. We are just being sort of like, lecturing and stuff. But humor is underrated in leadership. It
Yeah.
disarms tension, builds rapport, makes you more approachable in a world full stress and uncertainty. The ability to laugh, especially at yourself, is a valuable trait. So your thing should think. Thank you for that when you think when you make a laugh of yourself, which is not so easy. So that would be my most important
Yeah.
advice for future leaders, and then this curiosity. And I think that you trust people who have this intellectual power. So I would just be very brave saying that work on your intellect, and just this is the continuous learning, actually exercising your brain on different
Yeah.
fields all the time.
Yeah. I think it is important in terms of, I think everyone has their zone of genius. They just need to find it, and often it could be your ikigai, it could be your passion. There's something that you find to be more joyful to do, and then it's very very easy to learn and get really 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 clever and good at that thing. I think these advice, and we've gone through a lot of different things in terms of how
Right.
the world is changing, what's important for leaders, what's important for aspiring leaders of the younger generation, and all of this. And I have one question to wrap up and end the podcast. And we briefly discussed that before we jumped on and started. We hit the record, and that is, Maya, if you could get one answer to one question that you have related to the business and what you do, what would it be, and what would you like to know?
Well, yeah, it's. I think it's for centuries have been asked, but what's the secret sauce for predicting the next big thing before it becomes a big thing? And that's one part, and the other not very maybe relevant, but when the old school thinking about leadership finally get upgraded. I mean, this when is very important for me. Will it be when I'm still active, or will it be already in 50 years from today? So I would love to spot the trends before they are being a trends, and I would love to know the trends. So because
Yeah,
that's what brings me
yeah.
and makes
It
me laugh what I do.
Yeah, I always like the final questions there because they open They open a creative space for reflection, for afterthought, for contemplation, and all these things. And hopefully, not only I, starting with like, okay, how can we spot trends before they become trends and become the big next thing? And also, especially because I resonate with a lot of what you say about the future leadership is going to be different from what we have and what we've had. And hopefully, the listeners and the viewers also find that question to be something for afterthought and something to reflect on.
Right.
If someone wants to reach out to you, Maja, find you, read more about yourself, MMP, where can they find you?
I think LinkedIn is the best spot. I just like
Mm-hmm.
that tool. I think it's a open and very international business card, and everybody even doesn't have to be active there, but just have to have really great profile, because that's
Mm-hmm.
when we build our personal brand, which is very important as well.
Yeah. Maja, it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you for taking the
Thank
time.
you very much for having me. Thank you so much. It was great talking to you.